Hi, welcome to Rainbow Blossom, Louisville, Kentucky. I am Martha with Allergy Dragon, and we are going to be doing something a little different with this class. We're going to actually be posting it to live through, I think, like a couple different places, so just be looking for it. I'm sure Rainbow Blossom will let you know, and I will let you know where it's going to be, but we are going to be making a orange creamsicle cookie, and we are in Rainbow Blossom Wellness Center, so you will have background noises, we'll have customers coming in and out and that type of thing. And if anybody had any live questions, normally it would give me live questions. If not, you can always, email me at allergydragon@gmail.com, or you can message me on all my social medias. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and everything else. And if not, you can also find me on Rainbow Blossoms Wellness Center website, so you can always get a hold of me there. So we're going to need to preheat the oven to about 350 degrees. You can go up to 375 degrees, but you want that done. You want to have 2 pans ready with like parchment paper or silicone mats. I have silicone mats. I used parchment paper today because I was not going to leave my silicone mats here again. I've done it more than one time and I had to come back to get them. It's not fun. So, and I have Reagan here. That's her hand. And my husband's actually over in the corner and he probably won't come on at all, but he actually does exist. So we're going to need 2 oranges. So we're going to need 2 large navel oranges. I've already washed these. She had her hand on them, so I'm going to go rewash them again. I forgot about that. So I'm going to rewash them real quick. We're going to have water. May have to edit out a couple seconds, or you can keep it in. I'm not really picky because you know what? This is real life. If everybody was perfect, it'd be awfully boring. I know I'm not perfect. Okay, as I make my mess, I should really put the, not think about it, I should always put the trash can over closer, and I never do, even though I just walked out of shot, but you can still hear my loud mouth, hopefully. I'm pretty sure you could. So, 350 degrees, ready to go. So this is a weird recipe because of the fact that you do have like to kind of like eyeball it to a certain degree, because we're working with oranges and we're working with fruit. So the orange and fruit puree is actually going to cause us to like be our substitution for our eggs and actually helps add moisture to the actual recipe. So I've already washed and dried my oranges, and I did it again just for good comfort. And I'm going to grab a smallish bowl. I have my grater. You can do this different ways, depends on how your grater is. I always put mine across because I find it easier. You can put it down here. I find it goes to one side and then it's like, what? Or you can do a bigger bowl, especially if you're having kids do it. It's fun to want them to watch their fingers because they do get cut. They're tiny though. So I always just go like this. And I pretty much zest both my oranges. You don't have to. These are large navel oranges. Sometimes you can only get the, medium sized ones.
You could use any kind of orange though?
You could use any orange. The only reason I prefer the navel oranges is because you have less seeds. So it's less to like have to go through when you're going through your actual orange, because we're actually going to puree it in either a blender or a food processor. So this is one of those things. Now, obviously, if you have, let's see, you're going to use like, some people want to use canned things. So like, if we're going to use orange, what are they called? Mandarin oranges, like canned mandarin oranges. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to add starch to those when you puree it to make it thick. So like some cornstarch to it, because you do need starch. And that's actually why we're using some of the peel when we actually puree it. Because it is edible and it actually adds a lot of flavor. So what people don't realize, a lot of their citrus stuff, and it has no flavor. Now you could use orange flavoring. I've gotten a decent one from Rainbow Blossom that's all natural too, so that's good. So, but I prefer not to use as much artificial flavoring as any type, just because it is something that is changed. But some people can't have the whole orange. If that's the case, you're going to use at least 4 ounces of applesauce, and that's why the recipe has applesauce on there. Also, you're going to reserve some of the applesauce
So if you can't use oranges, you can
to
substitute
applesauce.
applesauce.
Yes. And if you're using the orange flavoring, then it's going to give you the orange. Or if you can have the orange zest, because there are some people that can have the skin, which is really weird, but they can't have the actual orange. But there are people out there. So it just depends on what is okay for you. But you can actually make this work for almost anybody. So fun times. So I just need a few tablespoons and that's about it. So what I normally do here is I peel my oranges real quick, or you use a knife. Would be the other way. Just cut them. Make sure you get your big divots out. But I usually go through them just to make sure, because every once in a while you end up with those mandarin, or not mandarin. This is not a mandarin orange. This is a navel orange, by the way. A navel orange, and you end up with a seed in it, and it's like, oh, I don't want to eat that. It's not very good in like a nice cloudy, cookie. So I did go ahead and do my puree. Now I don't zest a whole lot of my orange because I'm going to use a lot of the peeling for one, for flavor, and two, it actually, adds makes it more of a puree and adds us, oh my gosh, texture. I can't say texture. So it's always fun when I have people here and I can talk to them. See, this is why I need you, Reagan. That's right. So you're just popping them up and make sure you don't have any big ones. Most of the time you can just feel if you have a
So you're opening up individual like slices to look for seeds.
Yeah, just to look for seeds real quick. And usually you can just don't even have to open the whole thing up. But it also aids if you're using a blender versus using a food processor. You can just, what they call it, pulse it, and then it'll
break apart.
Yeah. Because if you don't have enough moisture, it will really, will make it not much of a pulp. So this is my magical pulp.
So I was gonna say, so you peel both oranges, break them open, look for seeds.
Look for seeds.
And you throw the slices in. Do you add any of the rind?
Yes, I do add the rind to it.
Both the rind from both oranges as well?
I usually add both. It's a personal flavor type of thing for people, or if they just do not like to eat the rind with it, because some people don't like the texture of it. You can't tell in the cookie. Most people are like, what? I don't want to eat that. But I find it really, really adds a lot of flavor and texture in a good way. So it's more of a personal preference. So if you do this and you don't want to put the rind in, you just want a little bit of that. You will not have as much of an orange flavor. So that's where it goes into the preference of it, the texture and the flavor.
Okay, so you're blending rind, slices, all.
Yeah, and I just pulse it, and the reason I peel it is that I'm getting smaller textures. So I usually use my blender for it versus getting the food processor out. Obviously, if you have a food processor, you don't have to be quite as thorough, because if not, it's not going to freeze up like a blender is. But
yeah,
I know a lot of people don't have food processors, so it's like, how do I do that and make it work? Okay, you just pulse it, and you don't want to put a water in it because then you dilute it down. So this is mine with full two oranges. And then it has two of the skins of all of them. So, and then you end up with a really good texture. And yes, it smells good too. So, and
beautiful.
It looks like you could just sit here and eat it. Doesn't it? It looks like orange sorbet, basically. Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically orange sorbet is what you're kind of going for. So, yay. So now that we have our sorbet, and that's probably the most labor intensive part of this actual
peeling the orange is the hardest part.
Yeah, and zesting it, I think, and then that's the most, it's the hardest part of the whole thing. Okay, so we have 2 cups of flour, and then we have a half a cup of flour reserve, and that's just because your moisture level can differ. And if
this is where you have to eyeball.
This is where you have to eyeball, and I will show you at the end what you're looking for correct texture on a cookie. And I hate to be like, oh, this is where you have to eyeball, but it is. But it also really scares people using fresh fruit with cooking, because you can't get the same thing each time because you're using something natural. You don't know how much
juice levels can be different from fruit for piece to piece.
Exactly, from tree to tree and from season to season, especially. So you can't really tell, but I want people to not be so scared of it. If they only sold orange pulp, opposed to concentrated orange juice, which I guess you could always use that, but then you would still have to like thicken it as well. So just throwing it out there in my brain. I was like, that's kind of weird. I don't know if I'd do that. So I'm going to put my orange pop and we're going to do what we call creaming. So you would normally cream your butter together, but we're using avocado oil. We have 1/4 of a cup of avocado oil. And I like avocado oil because it doesn't have a lot of flavor, but it's really good for you and it kind of mimics things. And then olive oil works really well too.
What about grapeseed? Grapeseed doesn't have a ton of flavor either.
No, it doesn't have a ton of flavor. I have not used it with this recipe, so I honestly, it should be about the same level of fat, you know, that kind of thing. I have with the olive oil, I have used, I made it a little bit more savory, put less sugar in it, and I've actually put like rosemary and made more of like a muffin type of thing. So it works good that way too. So we're gonna cream our sugar and everything together. But we have vanilla, which I'm supposed to be a teaspoon of vanilla, but I lost some of it on the way here. Oops. Yeah. And then he was like, we were like gonna go buy a bottle, and I was like, I'm not gonna buy a bottle when I just need a little bit. It's not gonna kill the flavor of this, okay? So I have a teaspoon of salt, which I put in with my sugar. And then this is a vegan sugar. And the way you find out if it's vegan or not has to do with like how it is filtered. I know a lot of people are like, what? But I use Wholesom's brand quite a bit.
I didn't realize there was such a thing as vegan sugar.
Yes, because it has to do with the filtration, because they use char bones a lot when they do the processing of sugar. Yes. And yeah, okay, mind blown. Yeah, random thought. So like I have a lot of friends, well, I don't have a lot of friends, they are friends now, but I've had a lot of, I've had to work recently with a lot of people that have the alpha-gal syndrome. And that is a syndrome that's based from the tick, the Lone Star tick, and they actually are allergic to beef. It also goes into pork and things like that. In some cases, they can't, because a lot of times it's cow bones, they actually have a reaction from the sugar. So that's actually why, yeah. And plus also for vegan reasons. Now, a lot of people that are vegan, half of them don't even realize it. Okay. And then half of them are, then when they do realize it, oh my gosh, I'm not going to consume that type of thing. But it is possible. And there's like Pioneer sugar, I think. It's technically a vegan sugar.
Rainbow Blossom is vegan.
Yeah, Wholesome, yeah. That's at Rainbow Blossom. I buy them a lot. Powdered confectioner sugar, and yeah, it literally says it's vegan on it. And but the reason that there is an actual, because people will be like, what, sugar is vegan? And I'm like, it actually has to do with the processing. So that's why there is such a thing as vegan sugar.
Good to know.
Yeah. Okay. The more you know. See, this is why we like to work with each other. Right? You never know when I'm gonna throw something out there. Okay, so we're creaming this together like you would your butter and your eggs and your sugar, just like you do when you're baking anything else. And I put my salt in there. And so this is kind of like, I call it like a pumpkin. It's almost not quite as thick as a pumpkin, like a pumpkin puree. Yeah, I couldn't get puree out. Thank you. See, bring my other brain. I do get tongue tied. Just one of those things.
I smell that right now.
It does, and it smells good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really bright, like it's a.
It smells like sunshine. I'm not trying to be a dork, but yeah. I am dorky. It smells like sunshine. So the good thing about this recipe, is the fact that you are eyeballing it, but I think you can pretty much tell even from me not doing that part, but how thick it is. It's like a cream. Now this tastes like the sorbet in process, not that it's there. So we have got 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Nope, that's backwards. I have 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Hey, the recipe will be on allergydragon.com. See, this is why I like to write things down. Just when I think I got it. So we're gonna put the flour, which is 2 cups, and I'm using Namaste's blend, which you can find at Namaste's blend. You can find at Rainbow Blossom. It's top 8 major allergen friendly, and it's gluten-free. And it's just a really, one of my favorite blends. It has xanthan gum in it, so you don't have to add xanthan gum to it. If you're using another blend, you may have to adjust your fluids and that kind of thing. So that's why I always tell people I'm using Namaste. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here. Now, you're gonna see some chemistry happen because this is citric acid in here, and we're putting all this soda in here, which is going to actually make our rice really, really good and fun.
The dough will rise.
It will rise a little bit. You're gonna see some popping going on here. It's gonna actually start to do some soda pop and dancing. People are gonna be like, what's going on? Why is my batter bubbling? So if it's bubbling too much, that means you have too little flour in it. So when you're eyeballing it, I think I actually got pretty perfect here, but if you see it like, so once we stopped, we got it all incorporated. Okay. It's good, nice. It's incorporated. Okay, so you're gonna let it sit for like a minute or so. We're gonna look, because with gluten-free flour, I've noticed of any kind, you end up with a little bit of absorption that happens. And you wanna give it like a minute or so to just rest, because you may have to adjust your fluids because of the fruit. So if there's a bubble that just, there's like a bubble there and a bubble there. So I just had two bubbles pop up. Okay, now if you have a lot of bubbling happen, you have too little flour. So you want to add about 1/4 of a cup at a time. I've never had to add more than half a cup, but I think fluid wise, we're good because I'm only seeing a couple bubbles, and that's what you want to see. So I have about like 6 or 8 going on, but like, I'm serious, it'll start to really bubble, and you'll be like, oh my gosh,
It's alive.
it's alive. So I'm using a 2-ounce scoop. So I did put this to the side. Now the other thing is, if it's not too dry. If it was too dry, there would be no movement in your dough. So if you had to like add extra fluid like applesauce, this is when you would do that. If there was no movement really, and it's all kind of clumped together, that's when you would have to add more applesauce in. Okay, so I'm using a scoop, which is about 1 ounce and a point something or else 8, so it's almost 2 ounce scoop. And now I'm scooping it. Now, if it immediately goes flat, you still have too little dough in it, too little flour in it. So the fact that it just moved a little bit, we're good. So it's kind of like a, if it looks like a pancake, you're in trouble, you need to add more flour. But usually you can start to tell before then. And you're gonna have a little bit of movement.
You want it to relax a little bit. You don't want it to be so stiff.
Right. Because if not, then you're gonna have like, it will be drier than a dry. We're going for a cake cookie. I want a soft, dreamy cookie. Hence, you know, kind of like a creamsicle. And I'm splattering stuff, and that's okay. And they're gonna cook at 350 for about 15 to 18 minutes. So it really just depends on your oven, your altitude.
So I think the stovetop just came on. It's very easy to do.
Apparently, hey, guess what? The stovetop came on, so we're gonna go ahead and shove this in the oven that's preheated to 350 degrees. And I can eyeball them, but we got like hey, you want to go ahead and put your hey to my husband? See, hey, honey, set the timer for 15 minutes, please, on your phone, because this timer never works for me. I'm not gonna even try it. I gave up. I've been here almost a year. I was like, October will be a year since I've done like my rainbow blossom.
Exciting.
This is exciting. I'm like, hey, stuff was popping up on my like Facebook feed and stuff, like your memories and that kind of thing. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, wow, really? Okay.
Bring pop those in the oven. Can we show how they
I will. Yes.
look like?
Thank you. She's also the art director. I'm gonna eventually just like hire her on for my like baking show if I ever have one. So see, kind of see what the texture is and where we kind of want them. Now they will bake a little bit different. We have the one on the top oven is gonna bake a little bit quicker than the one on the bottom. So that's heat rises even in your oven. So now I'm gonna change my gloves and we're going to work on our glaze. You could get a couple more cookies out of that. I'm not gonna try to though today, but you could get a little bit more cookies out of there. We're overflowing with orange over here, aren't we?
There are worse things.
There are worse things. I love oranges, and I'm just lucky that that's one of the fruits that Kara is not allergic to.
I have a good friend who's allergic to oranges.
Oh, see, yeah.
And you don't realize how many products have like orange essential oil.
Yeah. And about
Like
citric.
skincare products.
Yeah.
And things. You don't even pay, I don't pay attention.
No. And then citric acid, I'm sure, is an issue for them too, because like you don't know where the citric acid came from. Has that been a problem for you?
I'm not sure.
I hadn't thought
We
about
haven't,
that.
we haven't done that deep dive into her allergy. I just know
Okay.
don't cook her anything with oranges.
Oranges,
in it.
gotcha. The weird allergy freak chef starts asking the weird questions, going, hey, do you? And they're like, I don't know. Okay, so we have our wholesome organic powdered sugar, which is gluten-free and vegan. And it just cup for cup. I mean, it's just powdered sugar, just processed differently. You may have back here going, you use it the same as regular sugar because it is. But whatever. I just find it funny sometimes how people will market things. And I'm like, it's still sugar. It's just made different. So we're going to use about 2 cups of powdered sugar, and you're going to have plenty of flour left over. Oh my God. My hand doesn't work. So when I'm doing a glaze, this is not baking. So guess what? You kind of eyeball it a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Add a little bit in, a little bit out. If I was baking, make sure I put it in there properly and I leveled it off, not smashing it in, but that's when I'm baking.
Do you weigh? Are you a baker that weighs?
I love to weigh, but you want to know the pain in the butt about weighing for gluten-free?
Has a different density?
Yes, because of the mixes. So depending on the mix that you have, but it is the most accurate way to bake, coming from the pastry chef in me. It is definitely the most accurate way to bake. But most people don't use a scale. But yeah, if I'm using like a garbanzo bean based flour that's like a multi-mix and it's mainly mixed with those types of things versus like this one has potato starch, rice starch, and that kind of thing, my cup and cup are going to be totally different ounces.
That makes sense.
Yep. So that's why I like tell people, like, because Hungry Harry's, if I use Hungry Harry's, which is a great brand, I usually have to reduce my liquid a little bit when I'm doing their cup for cup, just because of the flours that they use. Or I have to increase the flour a little bit, either way, either reduce or.
Yeah.
So, random thoughts. So we have our orange zest. Now you can either put the orange zest in here. I do sometimes just for color, depending on how orangey, but those are very orangey. So I'm not putting the orange zest in there because I want it to be a creamy on the top. And then I'm just using some rice milk, which you can get at Rainbow Blossom. So pretty much everything I got here, you can buy, you can get at Rainbow Blossom. So I don't always bring brands, but I'm like, yeah, you can get that one. So anyway, you're gonna eyeball this. It's usually about 4 to 6 tablespoons. Okay, wow, I'm being really bad. So that's about a 3. I'm gonna go 4 right now. Then I'm gonna mix it.
You don't want it to be too runny.
Don't want it too runny. Yeah, you can always add more. Can't take away. I mean, I can technically add sugar, but then you get into the whole mess, and then by the time it's over with, you have used the whole bag of sugar.
And then you have a ton of glaze.
Exactly, and you're like, okay, it's gone wrong, because it's like just when you think it is. So when it starts to kind of clump together and it's not taking all that moisture in, we're gonna add a little bit right now.
So you want it to be a little bit runnier, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, man, it's a brand new one. They get kind of like, boom. So I'm gonna go 1 tablespoon. So this is when you gotta start being careful. So I wasn't very careful, just. And I'm gonna add 1 more. So I want it to be runny a little bit, but we still have a little bit of lumps in there. Now, if you wanted to make like
what does the texture look like right now? So it's still pretty thick.
It's still pretty thick. I want it just a little bit thinner. So I want to be able to run it on the cookies, but I don't want it to add too much. So it's not going to be a full tablespoon.
It's a tiny little splash.
Yeah, let's see if I can actually do that little tiny. There we go. See if I did a little tiny splash. I did pretty good that time though. I was like, woo! Like I said, you can always add a little bit extra. And this powdered sugar is a corn based. You can find a powdered sugar that has like a rice base and that kind of thing. But Wholesome's does not have it. They have the cornstarch in it. So if you are a corn allergy, you cannot have that.
This is corn free.
Oh, is that one corn free? Okay, listen, I lied to you. Basically because I was thinking
tapioca starch.
Oh, that one is tapioca starch. Okay. Hey, I lied. Wholesome is now corn free.
Well, and I wouldn't have said anything other than
it popped on there because I said that. No, that's awesome though. Hey, I don't think they used to be, but maybe they just recently did. See, that's what I get. So you're supposed to read labels every single time. I preach that. Read the label. I knew it was safe for me though. I mean, I was just like, oh, I'll just warn people. Okay. So we're pretty good now. Now we're like, yeah, so it's more like a little tiny thin ribbon is what you're wanting. Okay. I think that's a better way to describe what it's supposed to look like. Now the magic of TV or the magic of Zoom or wherever you're watching this right now is I have some already baked. Look, they're done. It's amazing. There's some here that I transported in time. Woo. So some of them have some of the bottoms on them, you know, because they were
stacked.
Yeah, they got stacked a little bit, and so they come out looking like that though. So we're gonna go ahead and glaze a couple of these. Now, obviously, if you glaze them while they're hot, the glaze is going to move a little bit more.
So is it better to do it when they're cold?
I like to do them when not quite as chilled as this, but I do like to do them when they're about 20 minutes to 30 minutes cooled down.
You let them sit.
I let them sit, yeah. I do like a little bit of movement on it, so you won't have as much movement on these. But you have to worry about also the cookie taking on some of the moisture when it's hot. Why you don't do them when they're too awful hot. At least gluten-free cookies. Now, we used to glaze the live and tar out of cookies that were what do they call it? That were regular baked back in the day when I used to work at a place that did that. Because yes, I used to work with plenty of wheat, and I didn't know why I was getting sick. It's just like a friend of mine. We were talking about, you know, because the kids, you know, going to college and that kind of thing, they start to, you know, they do the drinking thing and stuff. And I was like, maybe that's why those hangovers were so bad if I had like beer.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's a tough way to find out where celiac.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, maybe that's why I never liked beer that much. So I've never been a big beer drinker. Now you can do as much. If you want more glaze, you put more glaze on there. I am being very messy with my glaze because I don't have a glaze rack here, but I do have a glaze rack at home, which is basically just a cooling rack.
Could you turn them and dunk them?
You sure can. When they're this cold, you can dunk them. I'm kind of scared to dunk them though too much because guess what? I'm being dangerous today. So I'm just going to, I only got 2 more left for these. How many more minutes we got on those cookies? Because they're actually smelling really good. 5, okay. I am a smell baker. Anybody else a smell baker? Go, you're almost done. So I usually will drizzle them when I have it on a cooling rack. I have multiple cooling racks. I think that that's one investment everybody should have, especially if you have a small kitchen. That way you put them on your table and you can cool your cookies out faster, but then you can also use them for, you know, glazing and decorating and all kinds of fun stuff.
So will the glaze set?
It will.
How long does that take?
That usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And it'll get a little bit hard and have like a top. I'm trying not to keep this
kind of crust kind of.
Yeah, yes, but it's not going to be crispy. Now, if you want it to be thicker, you make it thicker and it will be a little bit harder texture. If you add corn syrup or rice syrup to it, 1, just gonna make it a lot sweeter, but 2, it also makes it almost more like royal icing. And you just do less milk that way. And you can do that type of thing if you like the texture better. So
what did you zest the orange for?
I zested the orange because sometimes if the orange is not very good in the orange you get, sometimes they're not very orangey. And I like a lot of orange flavor, so I will put that in my actual
So you
glaze.
put it on the icing?
Yes, and I'll put it in the glaze and the icing. And since I already put most of the peeling in mine, I usually zest even less than that. So most of the orange zest is actually going into your cookies as well.
Right.
So
But you could do a little dusting on the top.
Yeah,
if
you could
wanted.
even, yeah, if you wanted to take some right now and do a little bit to like just make it look pretty, except it's not really, this is a very wet
It's a
orange.
very wet, yeah, it is.
It's a very wet orange. In theory, you could definitely do that, and you probably would want to put it like on a dry towel.
Yeah, you could
Mm-hmm.
let it dry out in paper towels.
Yep. Just a little bit. So you could definitely do that.
Oh.
We'll see if that's too much orange for anybody. If it is, well, we'll have other ones for you. So we only have a couple more minutes now. It's about 2, 3. Yeah, those are pretty too. So they're not a real bright orange color because it doesn't have a lot of orange, artificial flavoring or coloring or that kind of thing. You're using a real orange. But like I said, it's very scary for people. So, but I can't eat a lot of preservatives. A lot of people can't. So I guess we need to try them.
Do you want to show them off?
Yeah, we can show
These
them
are
off.
pretty.
They are pretty. See, I always forget about the camera being this way. Comes from doing YouTube and remembering that my thing, I have to like do my show.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful. And I guess we need to test them and not try to fall on the mat back here. Which just about happened. But it's not a show until we eat the cookie, right? I mean, I think it's a law, isn't it? It might be.
Yeah, I just got a whiff of that. They smell so good.
Which one would you like?
I want a zest one.
Let's zest one.
Yeah.
I like how she said it. She was like, I want a zest one. Very pretty. Very pretty. It is a very pretty cookie with this. I'm going to do the non-zester. So I always like it when people take pictures of my stuff. It helps. You send it to me later. 1 more minute. 1.5. Okay, I'm going to go in then since we got 1.5 minutes. It's already starting to set up, so you're going to start it's been what, like 5 minutes maybe since I did this. And so you're going to start seeing, I don't know if you can tell from there, but it's already starting to break up a little bit.
Oh yeah, these are cake kind of cookies. Huh?
Yes, these are my favorite. I like cakey, soft cookies. And this is the person I really rely on because she does not like gluten-free stuff. Tell you what. Woo! Okay.
That's delicious. They have like a good chew to them.
Mm-hmm. I really like them. They're very good. Even if I do say so myself. I will share with plenty of people here if they want to eat any. Well, I guess we will wrap up. Of course, I need to get the cookies out.
They're totally orangey enough without the zest.
Yeah, I think that's great. I didn't put it on the glaze. And I think if I ate one with the orange, I've been like, whoa. But it's very orangey because you have the zest in there. Is it time? Oh, okay. See, I wanted to hear him go beep, 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 but he wouldn't do that for me. No. And they're very pretty when they come out. I mean, you saw them. I mean, I transported them here. It's not magic, So they're not as cool. They're very, 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 very pretty. Whoa. What? Okay. It's okay. Hey. We're hiring high-end people that we know. Like, hey, I made cookies. This one needs a little bit longer because it was on my second shelf. So I'm probably gonna leave it in for like another minute or 2. Okay, well that wraps it up. Anybody have any more questions? No?
No, I'm excited to snack on some
Cookies. Okay. Well, remember to check out Rainbow Blossom, rainbowblossom.com if you are not happen to be in the Louisville area, surrounding area, Indiana. And allergy-dragon.com. The rest of people will be live there as well. And I will see you. Bye.